down in New York City, and it was really dangerous there at the time, in the 1970s. Extremely dangerous. No one in their right mind would have gone to these parts of New York City unless they belonged there. And he went there and he started telling people about Jesus. And one of the guys said, well, if you are so concerned about me knowing Jesus, I don't have any shoes. Can you give me your shoes? And so David Wilkerson gave him his only pair of shoes. And then the rest of the day he walked around in his red socks. And that made such an impression on some of these people that they were like, you know, he's the real deal. We should actually listen to what he says. And so he moved down there from a beautiful place in Pennsylvania. He moved down to a really rough part of New York City. And he started a ministry that changed millions of people's lives. And it was just that he was following God every step of the way in his red socks. So he's someone for you to learn about with your moms and dads, and he's definitely a hero for this week. So then in Link It to Me, we talk about discrimination. And I want you to really talk to your moms and dads about that. Because in it, it says Martin Luther King's dream speech, which really, we're learning that part of it today in our next week. In a couple weeks, we're learning his dream speech. But it helped awaken people. And the verse, it says, a good name is more desirable than riches. To be esteemed is better than silver and gold. How was Martin Luther King, how did he sustain his good name? And one of the ways is he was constantly giving speeches about bringing people together. He wasn't giving speeches about dislike or hatred or things like that. He was telling people, let's come together and let's work together. So great thing to talk to your moms and dads about. Okay, so flip the book. You ready? Oh, and we've got Ruby Bridges. Isn't she just as cute as can be? You just want to give her, you just want to say, you are so cute. And Ruby Bridges was a little girl who, remember we were talking about things were separate but really not equal? Well, they decided that they would have children go, African-American children, go into some of the white schools. And so Ruby Bridges was one of the first that did that. She was, and so here she is surrounded by men that were supposed to protect her, and she marched into that school. So she's like the bravest girl ever to do that because she was very discriminated against. All right, so let's go to science. DNA is made of ACGT. DNA is made of ATCG. DNA is a long, thin molecule. It's like a code. It follows a solid rule. Chemicals called nucleotides make up the inside. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. DNA is made of ATCG. DNA is made of ATCG. All right, DNA! That's so cool. Did you throw that up? Make sure you've thrown that up. Okay. DNA is in all of us. It's what makes us. It is, do you know when DNA is produced? It's produced at conception from the very, very, very beginning. DNA is what makes us different. And so God takes this code and he folds it and 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 puts it into your cells. And that gives a code, tells everything about you. It tells why I have gray hair and why you've got reddish hair. It tells all these stories about you. And we are going to learn more about it in science this week. So we're going to have a whole video just on DNA and science. So right here, I want you to draw a double helix, a DNA strand. And DNA strand is on week 11 because when we do the weeks, we go over a period of time. So this would have been the same period of time. So the DNA strand that you're going to draw will look very similar to this. And remember, it is twisted. Can you do a twisted DNA strand? Very cool. It's got to go kind of like that. Twisted. Like that. Okay, the microphone needs to be a little bit closer. All right, and finally, we have on June 25th, can you throw this up? This is geography. On June 25th, 1950, the North Korean People's Army sent 75,000 troops across the 38th parallel. The Korean War, the start of the Cold War. The Cold War, the Democratic People's Republic in the north, backed by the Soviets, was pouring forth. The Republic of China down in the south, backed by the West. Shut your mouth! Shut Shut your mouth, Simon. The Korean War, at the start of the Cold War, by July, the U.S. chose the South to fight for. All right, so we are in 1950. The World War II has ended. Say bye to World War II.
Goodbye.
Bye, World War II. And we are now in the Korean War. So what happened was, you had, after World War II, you had Russia had an agreement with Germany that took over almost all of Eastern Europe. So you're talking Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, you're talking Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, my mind has gone blank. All of these Eastern European countries were taken over by the Soviet Union for communism. And communism is where the government is really big, do big government, and the people are really little. The people get no say almost at all on anything, and the government tells everyone what to say, what to do, how to act, what they're going to shop. And there are long lines for everything. And so the Soviet Union wanted to expand this throughout the whole world. And so they were pushing for countries like North Korea to go in and start conquering. And then what they were going to do is take over from that. And so they were kind of like surrogates. They were like, you do this and we'll support you. But the United States, we believe in democracy. We believe in freedom. We believe that God tells each of us what He wants us to do, and we're to fulfill the destiny that God has for us. And so we know that God doesn't want us to have a government that is telling us every single thing we can do, and a government that's so in charge of us that we can't do His will. And so the United States was like, whoa, 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 we can't have you spread communism all over the world. We're going to have to stop it. So the Korean Peninsula, can you throw the Korean Peninsula up? The Korean Peninsula was the first part of when we did this. And so communism, it doesn't sound that bad, right? Because you have everything's going to be fair, and people are going to work to their ability, and everyone's going to get all the medical care they need. Everyone's going to get everything they need, and it's just going to be so happy. Let's just be happy. Oh, so happy. Yeah, no, not so much. So my aunt and uncle were research scientists in all these years, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. And so they were research scientists, and they did agricultural research. And so every year they had a visiting scholar from somewhere in the Soviet Union. So it might be someone from Georgia, the country of, or it might be someone from Belarus, somewhere in the Soviet Union. They would come and they would stay with my aunt and uncle. And so my aunt and uncle would do the same thing every time someone would come visit. They would bring them to the, where would they bring them? Do you know? They'd bring them to the grocery store. And do you know what? Every single time for all these years, it's like 20 years worth of people coming, all these years, the same reaction every single time. It was this. They were so stunned. None of them would believe that that was a real grocery store. They thought it was a fake grocery store that the government had put there so that they would think that the U.S. was really rich. And my aunt and uncle would say, no, 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 no. It's a normal grocery store. There are like millions of these across the United States. This is normal. And no one would believe it because the shelves had food in them. Like they had actual food on the shelves. And they had fresh things, and they had all this cool stuff in the grocery store. And my aunt would say, it's like this every single day. And the people in the Soviet Union would never believe them. Because in the Soviet Union, you would have to stand in line for hours and hours and hours and hours every single day just to go to the grocery store for them to tell you what you could have. So you might get bread that week or that day, or you might get some meat that day, or you might get something else that day, or you might just get nothing after you stood in line all those hours. And that was okay because, you know, that was just what it was. It was just communism. So the difference between God telling people what to do and people just being able to work hard and make the money that they can make and being able to prosper on their own is huge compared to having a big government telling everyone what to do. When you have that big government telling everyone what to do, people can't thrive. They can't be who they're supposed to be. And so the whole Korean conflict was kind of about that. You had the Chinese and the Soviets helping the North, and they started to take over the whole Korean Peninsula. The United States came in, they pushed them out, The Chinese came back down, and they finally ended at the 38th parallel, and that's where we are today. All right, so that is it for week 12. You did a great job, Simon. And we will see you at Timeline Cards. We'll see you in just a second. Bye.